Hi, hi. How is everybody doing? Let me check a few settings here. Yes. There's no viewers yet, but well, if you're watching this after the fact, let me fill you in on what we're going to do. Last stream I demonstrated the Benjolin. I have a Forest Caver DIY edition that I didn't build because I can't solder for shit. And I explained a little bit about, well, that module. Hoofjaw says, hello, I'm well. Hey, Hoofjaw. Good to see you here. And in the last stream, we built a patch, like a generative patch with the Benjolin. Not using it for noise or drones, just for generic music. And because, well, just because I want to, but I noticed people are interested in that kind of behavior of Benjolin. I want to show you how you can build one yourself with a shift register, and I will be using a Nibbler by Slappy Engineering. And in the patch that you were listening to, I used 2. That's not mandatory. I use 2 because I have to. This makes the shift register longer, but apart from that, you can do it with 1. I know there's other shift register modules out there. I'm guessing, if I'm correct, Ritual Electronics has one. I think with 8 steps. But well, this is a generative patch using both Nibblers as well. It's kind of a crossbreed between a Benjolin and a Turing machine, because these two are well, maybe not related, but a Turing machine, if you can build a Wrangler or a Benjolin with a shift register, you can make a Turing machine as well, which might be even more interesting for generative music. I even built in the loop functionality into this patch, and I flick a switch here. We should start hearing that like the high oscillator starts looping. Sometimes the loop changes a little bit. I don't know why that happens. I've noticed this on the real Benjolin as well. Sometimes it can get like stuck into a static DC offset, which is really weird, but well, I don't pretend that I understand the Benjolin entirely. It's a really confusing instrument. So hey, Hoofjaw, let me know, is the sound okay? It's kind of annoying that I only can monitor the sound once the stream is finished. Other than that, I have to rely on like my memory to have the volumes, etc. on the same levels as last time. Cortical Larva says, yep, sounds fine. Hey, Cortical Larva, nice to see you here again as well. How are you doing? Let's get this out of the loop. Yes, Cortical, you're on time. I haven't been on for more than a few minutes, just explaining what I want to do today. And that is like rebuilding a similar patch as this, because in a few minutes I'll pull out all the cables. And this is like a Benjolin type patch. Or even Turing machine, depends on how you look at it. I can get the tempo to be a little bit more jittery if I want. And that's really the Benjolin aspect of things. Let's get this to loop. When I bring in a hi-hat, you can clearly hear what our clock is doing. So by combining the functionality of the Benjolin and the Turing machine, you can make loops that have that slight variation in tempo as well, which is really more a thing of the Benjolin. Of course, we're running clocks at LFO rates. If you are confused about me talking about the Benjolin all the time, if you run a Benjolin at LFO rates, you can use it for these kind of things. It's only when you start clocking it at audio rates that you get into chaos, noise territory, modem sounds, digital noise. So I can choose with the flick of a switch whether I want to loop everything. Hey, Blastpast says howdy to you too, sir. How are you tonight? But I guess it's rather early where you live. No, I'm thinking early afternoon. So to explain this a little bit further, this voice is the one driven by the wrangler inside the makeshift Benjolin. Which I can loop. And the bass here, which is in stereo because I'm running it through Kosalin, which is a frequency shifter by Chaos Modules. This bass is derived from Well, the fact that I'm using 2 nibblers for this means that I can use one stepped output, one rungle output, so to speak, for the melody, and the other one is giving me a phase shifted version of that, and I'm using that to sample voltages from, which are controlling the bass. LastPass says, doing good here, hope you are well, well, at least as long as the neighbors don't start making noise, I'm okay. Critical Larva says, I love the Kotzalin. Well, I haven't used it a ton, but when I use it, I kind of use it as a like a chorus almost, without it being a chorus. I really like to use it like that. Let's focus a little bit on that sound. Let's increase the shifting a little bit. It sounds really nice, I think, but it can be a little bit jarring due to the stereo spread. Hi Loxink. Loxink says, let's make a song today, verse, chorus, verse. Well, maybe you should go live and do that. Maybe someday, but not today, Loxink. Today we'll focus on batch programming a Nibbler to make a Benjolin or a Turing machine. Green Contact says, sounds good. Hi Green Contact, welcome. I don't think I've seen you before. How nice that you can make the stream. Cortical Larva says you can minimalize it and slightly drift with it. Nibbler Benjolin will be incredible. Green Contact says hello and thank you. Yeah, I'm stuck, but first time I see your stream. Well, it's nice of you to check it out. Let me remove all my cables here. So this is the last time you'll hear this patch ever. How's that for cosmic horror? Cortical Larva says, I was referring to the Kotzalin. Ah, yes, the slight drifting. Yes, that's what I kind of try to do when I use it as a mono to stereo device like I am now. But let's just start removing things here. This is the part that I enjoy the least about doing modular, removing the cables. Not because I am like nostalgic for my patches. No, when I start removing cables, it's really because I want to start over. I like the fact that you can start over as many times as you want with a modular. And well, once you've removed all the cables, you really have a blank slate, which I really enjoy. But the act of removing the cables, the physical thing, I really don't enjoy. Probably because I kind of want to sort or order my cables to length. And well, I don't particularly enjoy the feeling of the cables touching my hands either. It's probably a neurodivergent thing. I can get really oversaturated by the feeling of these cables brushing against the backs of my hand. There's something about that. It hasn't happened a lot, but sometimes I try to make like a dough for like bread or something, and well, it's a similar feeling. I cannot stand the feeling of a dough on my hands. I get it's a really icky feeling. Anyway, Green Contact says, hey chat, give the stream a like, helps this channel. Yes, thank you very much, Green Contact. Cortical Larva says, it can damage your cables and modules if not being too gentle. Yeah, you shouldn't take an example of how I remove my cables. I pull them by the cable, not by the plug. You should not do that ever. Well. Tracy Harms says, hi, unsure that I can stay through the whole thing, but this is a cool project. Hi, Tracy Harms. How nice that you joined the stream. So if you joined later, like Tracy, let me just tell you that I want to build a Benjolin and a Turing machine. It's really a really similar patch. I want to build a Turing machine and a Benjolin, with one Nibbler. The patch I just destroyed was using 2 Nibblers, but well, I want to just show you with one. And let me zoom in on one of them, or maybe, yeah, why not both of them? We'll need the VCO next to it anyway. So maybe it's a bit of a lie to say you can do it with a Nibbler by itself. You also need at least at least 2 VCOs to get this to work, especially if you want to make a Benjolin. But since last stream we focused on the Benjolin, I want to do that first, and then I'll add to that, or just, well, show you how that also works as being a Turing machine. So if you remember, on the Benjolin we had a VCO that's used for the data input of the shift register, and we also have a VCO that's being used as a clock for the shift register. So let's patch up the square output of one oscillator here. This is running at audio rates, but it doesn't matter that much, at least for now. And I want this to be our data input. So on Nibbler, there's the shift data. That's the data input of the shift register. Then we need a clock source. In fact, I want to use stackable cables here. so I can use the oscillator outputs later. So one oscillator is going into the shift data, and another oscillator, I'm using the square wave outputs because that makes most sense, but you can, at least for Nibbler, use any output you want. So we take a square output of a second VCO, being the center one here on 3 body, and we use that as a clock. Now if you're using the shift register on Nibbler, you need to use this input for a clock, which is called or labeled the shift input. I'm wondering if you can see the shift register going. Yes, you can a little bit. So here you can see the LEDs for the shift register going. If I increase the speed of the VCO that is used for a clock, you should see that the data is going through the register faster. I think that's really clear there. And if we now, just to make this clear, use the stepped output here, we have 2, but well, it doesn't matter. Let's just use 1. They're the same. If I use the stepped output there to sequence another VCO here, let's patch this here. Let's introduce. You already have like a randomized stepped voltage there, which already can be really useful. And I use Nibbler for this all the time in patches, because well, you can just send in a random VCO or sound source, even noise, it doesn't really matter, and then you clock it with something that's related to the tempo of your patch, and you have a stepped voltage that follows the speed or tempo of your track. Okay, let's remove this. This was just to make a point. Now we need to, at least to make this behave as a Benjolin or Turing machine, we need to make sure that the end of our shift register gets fed back into the input. And on Nibbler there's this clever data XOR input made just for that. I will just use the output of the last bit here, the last step in the register, and patch that back into the XOR input, which kind of recycles the bits in the first stage, but in an XOR way. So it looks at the new data coming in from the VCO. It also looks at the last bit. It takes an XOR logic operation, so exclusive OR, and then the outcome of that will be our new first bit. I'm already out of breath here. Let me take a breather. Now, to make this behave as a wrangler, we should send that, oh, I'm saying wrangler, I mean Benjolin. We need to send the wrangle output, because the stepped output of a Benjolin is called the wrangle output. We need to send that back into the frequency modulation inputs of the VCOs that are used as data and as clock. Let's take a longer cable for this. So let's send that into the FM input. And now if we monitor, for example, on the real Benjolin, we had a triangle wave for both VCOs and a square output. So let's monitor the triangle output of the first VCO here. And if we now increase the FM, we get a really similar behavior as what we did on the Benjolin. And once I use audio rate for the clock source, you can start hearing the chaos that we are so used to hearing when we hear Benjolin sounds. What I'm doing, I'm just playing around with the frequencies of both the VCOs and the FM index here. We can monitor the triangle output of the clock, but that will sound similar. We can monitor the output of the first bit, which should be like comparable to the XOR output on the Benjolin. Or we can even, let me hold that thought. There is Dennis Driamov says, hi, thanks for awesome channel. Thank you for being here. Green Context says, we add the dimension of brutal. I like that. That's another slogan. We figured out a slogan for a t-shirt a few streams back. That slogan was noise, yes, which I thought was really cool, but I think we add the dimension of brutal. Reminds me of At the Mouth of Madness. It has a nice ring to it. We can also, because on the Benjolin there's a PWM output that's like a comparator output. Well, the comparison between both triangles, I can use compare2 as a comparator. I cannot compare one triangle to the other, but I can like compare them both. To a window that I set manually. Oh wow, is this almost out of, yes. So compare2 is here. I can like compare the phases or something, and then if I take one of the logic outputs, this will be a computation or logic function between both VCOs. I can listen to that, and it should be similarly to the real Benjolin, like a pulse wave with a variable width. Green Game Contact says that noise, yes, is good. I know, right? So there, that's a Benjolin for you, with really just one nibbler and 2 VCOs. Now I'm using 3 body, but you can use 2 separate VCOs as long as you have a frequency control and an FM input. You should be able to make it work. Now let's go back to LFO rates. Now to make the Benjolin behave in or switch over to looping mode, all you really need to do is really disconnect. No, I disconnected my clock here. That's wrong. You need to disconnect the data input. This means that the data of the last bit will always get recycled to the start again, but well, for some reason it's not working if you don't connect a cable there, so let's remove it here. Well, for some reason it's decided to do weird there. So if we disconnect the data that's going into the shift register, because we connected the last bit output here, the last stage output, back into the input with the XOR function, the end result of that is that when you don't have any information at the data input, when the information there is a 0 permanently, you get a loop that always keeps on going. So to what am I trying to say here? Well, if you want to be able to do that at the flick of a switch, you really just need to send this data out. I keep saying data or data. I'm not sure which one is right. So all you need to do is route that through a switch. I'm using switch 4, and then when you engage the signal, you get the always generative behavior, and then when you stop sending the data through, you get a loop. Well, and as long as you run this at LFO rates, this is a Turing machine. I know in a Turing machine there's like a knob for reintroducing some chaos. On my patch here it's either total chaos or no chaos at all. But other than that, we even have added functionality because we can like jitter our clock. You can take any of the shift register outputs here, the separate parts of the shift register or the bits. You can use that, for example, to trigger some percussion like a kick drum. And if you get sick of the atonal madness, well, then you can send your Rungle output through a quantizer. I'm going through an attenuator first, just so I can clamp down a little bit on the extreme voltages. Let's run it here. Let's go for a pentatonic scale here. Tracy Harms says, I'm going to listen to this from the beginning and try to build equivalents from the modules that I have. Well, as long as you have some kind of shift register, preferably with an XOR input, I'm sure you can do so. And even when I'm not in loop mode, because the loop function is not engaged right now, sometimes it gets stuck into a repetitive loop for a while and it jumps out, and that's because this is really a chaotic device. Hoofjaw says the first, he's talking about the data. The first is UK pronunciation, the second is US, but you hear it more in the UK these days. Well, now I'm wondering how I pronounced it the first time and the second time. I'm guessing data or data. There's even a third pronunciation. So one of them is probably just wrong. So in my opinion, there's data, and well, since that is being used in Star Trek, I'm thinking that's American or US English. The data is US. Data. Yes, data is English. Yes. And data. No, so data is UK, says Hoofjaw. Okay. And data is probably US. So we're learning English here today, thanks to my British friend Hoofjaw. Tracy Harms says, I have your analog step 8 for shift register and a Mystic Anna 2 among other logic modules. There's a video on my channel somewhere where I built a Benjolin or Wrangler with both Nibbler and step 8. You have to be a little bit creative when you're using step 8 because you don't have an DAC output, but you can fix that if you play around with the weighing, with the weight of the separate stages. Green Contact says live long and prosper. Well, he says it in other words, but Blastpass says, I hear most people here, and I know Blastpass is from the US. I hear most people here say data also. So data seems to be the most common pronunciation. Well, I have no idea, guys or girls. So let's add a little bit to this patch. Tell me, what can I do? What should I do? Should I do some sound design with this one voice? Or should I add a bass like I did in the start at the start of the video? suggestions. Tracy Harm says, gotta go. Bye. Bye, Tracy. Thanks for joining. Hope to see you again soon. Hovja says, data might be European. Blastpass says, I would love to hear the Benjolin used as an interesting sound source, sort of a chaotic oscillator like you're doing now, but with a sequence programmed into it. I'm not entirely sure what you mean, Blastpass, because what I'm doing now is like there is a sequence going on, but now it's not a chaotic oscillator, it's more of a Turing machine. Cortical Larva says sub and end sound design, so that's not, it's not one or the other, that's both. Blastpass says, is there a way to sequence it externally? But the point of me building a Benjolin to create a Turing machine is, of course, to use it as a sequencer itself. But you could use Benjolin. Yeah, sure. I think I know what you're on about, Blastpass. So what you mean is, like, do this. So just like use it. Use this. Wait. Use the Benjolin in like audio rate chaos mode. I just removed the quantizer again. Don't worry, Blastpass, that you don't completely understand how all of this works. So, to reiterate quickly, this center VCO is used as a clock for our shift register. If we run this at LFO rates, we get this behavior. The second VCO, or the first one here, the left one, is being used as a data input for Nibbler for the shift register, and we're also monitoring an oscillator output of that left oscillator. So when we switch the center one to LFO mode, the left one is still at audio rates, so we can still monitor this as audio, but it's being controlled by the wrangler that we made. And since the wrangler is clocked at LFO modes, we get these slow stepped voltages. But once we switch the clocking VCO to audio rates, our wrangle, our stepped output here, is stepping through all the steps at audio rates, and that gives us this sonic mayhem. But of course, you can then, if you really want, like sequence, like for example your clock. Let me try something here. Let's bring the sequencer into view here. So of course, this is a little bit weird, and this might not sound very harmonious, but you can sequence, at least when you build one yourself, you have all these spare inputs, and you can like sequence it externally. I wonder what happens when we sequence the VCO that we are listening to, because both of these VCOs will, well, make the shift register behave differently. Green Contact says data error. Cortical Larva says rate mod is when it gets chaotic. Green Contact says reminds me of childhood and OG modem connections. Absolutely. Blastpass says I love this sound, gnarly sounds preceded logging into AM to chat. Cortical Larva, I have to sequence all three on the traditional Benjolin. Let's increase the speed of our sequence, why not? Let's make it longer. Let's send the sequence to both the data VCO and the clocking VCO, if I can get my cable out here. So let's just use another stackable cable. Cortical Larva says there is a filter on the Benjolin. Yes, correct. I haven't patched up a filter yet, but well, I can do just that. Let's take a low pass filter. So I'm wondering what we are hearing here. By the way, I forgot to disconnect my kick drum, which has been well, blasting away. Anyway, I connected let's use the square output of the clocking VCO here. Why not? Or maybe I can use the first bit output, which would correspond to the XOR output on the real Benjolin. Cool idea that I used on a release somewhere. Well, if you hunt down my binaural, if you hunt down my album Binaural on Bandcamp, there's like one track that's supposed to be like the ambience on a spaceship, orbital research station or something like that, and there's like, it sounds like talking in the distance or singing. That was actually me, that was actually a patch with both the Nibblers here being controlled by one oscillator here as a clock, and then the two oscillators separately for the data. So the left oscillator was used as a data input for the left nibbler, and the right one for the right nibbler. And then I extracted stereo sound from that by actually sequencing the clock VCO. Green Contact says, bye, gotta go, have fun. Yeah, hope to see you again soon. Green Contact, thanks for joining. It's always nice to have a few people in the, well, a few people watching. Cortical Larva says, as a response to Hoofjaw, who asked where does the filter go on a Benjolin, it's after the top 3 and has Wrangler as well. But it depends on which version of the Benjolin you have. There's one, usually the PWM output is being it's normalized to the filter outputs. Sometimes you have 3 filters, low pass, high pass, band pass. On my Benjolin I only have what I think is a low pass, but it could be a band pass as well. It's a little bit confusing. And it also has an attenuator to introduce the Wrangler signal. So if we switch back to, let's remove the sequence first. So if we switch back to let's do this. So if we switch back to LFO rates for the clock, this should be easier to demonstrate on the real Benjolin. So you have these 3 knobs. 2 are for introducing the stepped voltage to the FM of the 2 VCOs, and then there's also a knob for introducing the stepped voltage to the frequency of the filter, which would behave something like this. Let's take the bandpass output. Cortical Larva says sometimes there's an XOR. Yes, the XOR output correlates to the first bit of the register. The PWM is an output of a comparator who compares the 2 oscillators together. It compares the triangle wave of the data oscillator and the triangle wave of the clock. If one is higher than the other, the gate is high. If one is lower than the other, the gate of the PWM output is low. So let's send this back into the quantizer. So I hope that answered your question, Blastpass. You can sequence a Benjolin, but if you want to do that with a real one, well, you can do as well, because there's always inputs for sending modulation to the frequency. Let's try to do some sound design with this. and the sub. Maybe I can do both at the same time by introducing some subharmonics. Let's use maths, because, well, that's just an easy module to create subharmonics with. Let's take this output, which is also carrying the triangle. Let's send it into maths here. And if we add this output to the mixer as well, let's send this here. I'm probably doing things wrong here. Am I? Apologies, I kind of forgot how to patch subharmonics. Cortical Larva says, I have a couple of them, couple of Benjolins, but the epoch with Rob's name is in my case. I think it's high pass, right, low pass, left. Filter on one, they do vary. Yes, there's so many different versions. So let's try figuring out the subharmonics here. So why is this only reacting for very few notes here? Maybe I should just take the square output. Yes, I think that's a decent subharmonic. That is sounding really cool. Let's send this through into the filter as well. I think this is sounding really good. Maybe I should go for the low pass output so we can hear the bass a little bit more. Well, maybe I should create another subharmonic or something similar maybe. Let's try it with a looping maths. I kind of forgot how this sounds, so let's listen to that by itself. That sounds really cool, but I have to modulate this parameter, which is the attack. Let's do that with an output of orbit 3 going through my mix mode to attenuate it a little bit. Let's see if that makes us happy. Let's make it slower. Not so slow. Okay. I'm happy with that. Let's send it into the filter as well. So this is the sound of the square output here on our data oscillator, going through a looping envelope on data, really fast one. So this gives us sync tones, especially with the modulation. Then there's the subharmonic, and then there's just the regular square output. All of this is low pass filtered. Let's modulate the frequency of that. And then I think I will send this through Morph 4 and add a kick drum to all of it. And why Morph 4? Because then I can add some sidechain to it, because, well, as I told you last stream, my outboard compressor is fucked. Let's see if adding some reverb to this will sound nice. And some delay, just a little bit. Sounds rather nice. Let's see if I can add that kick drum again. And let's send it through the VCAs on Morph 4. And let's use the envelope output here on my Mandrake kick drum, just as a sidechain envelope. This sounds awesome, doesn't it? LastPass says, wow, sounds so good, I agree. Cortical Larva agrees as well. Liquid and Wondrous Morph 4 rocks. Yes, it does. I use it not nearly enough. Well, not for what it's made, like the morphing between, I always get confused at first. I always figure it out, but I always get confused at first. But I'm thinking I have a sound in my head that I want to add to this. Something high and repetitive to like counteract the chaotic nature of this. And I'm wondering how to sync up the clocks. Let's just use the melted output of the VCO that we are using as a clock. Maybe I can send this to the second Nibbler maybe and use that in a different mode as a clock divider. Yes, I think that will do. And then I can take one of these outputs here, send that to my sequencer. Let's change up the camera angle here again. So I've taken the carry output here to sequence or to clock my sequencer, so it should only proceed to the next step when the carry output goes high. Then maybe I can use, let's just use another output of 3 body here. Let's make it more silent. Let's find a note that works. Let's see if when we sequence this, I'm guessing I'm in a completely wrong scale here. So I'm going to have to manually tune. Cortical Larva says people don't ever get it, and scanning filters or round robining etc. sync clocks. End of cycle. Can't decide on which note. I think this one is nice. Okay, I want to send this sound through maybe, well, let's send it through a low pass gate instead of a VCA, because, well, that's easier. I have one right there. Maybe I can use the square output of the clocking VCO to modulate that. And then if we monitor the output of this low pass gate, I'm using Omen by Herzlich Labs. I really love that. Now, I want more high frequency, so maybe let's send the output of the low pass gate, because, well, that's taking away a little bit of the high frequencies and I really need those. Let's send it to Doppio here, my 3-tom, to reintroduce some high frequency content. I'm liking that a lot. I think I want to make the sound a little bit more rich or less flat. So let's try adding some FM, maybe coming from cycle 4 here. Or maybe some phase modulation. Yes, it's exactly what I hoped how it would sound. another one of those moments that the wrangler or Benjolin or whatever we should call it at this point gets like stuck in a weird static offset. So let's reset it here. No dice. So it's really weird. Let's try to get it going again. This has never happened like this. It seems like Nibbler has decided to stop its normal behavior. Which is weird. Let me try getting it out here, everyone. This one is doing something weird. I'm guessing it's because I'm doing something weird there. Yes, I should go through a buffered mult first. Sometimes passive modules like low-pass gates can create kind of, maybe it's a short, I don't know. But when that happens, it's best to go through a buffered mult. But even then it's... ah, no. Let's see to what everyone is saying here. Cortical Larva says didn't know there was an issue on the Nibbler. Well, it isn't. It was because I used low pass gate, which can sometimes suck all the voltage out of a whole patch, which is really weird. I don't think it's voltage drop. It's really like sometimes when you're using I don't know, sometimes all the sound is kind of sucked out of it seems sucked out of your cables. It has something to do with the buffering, the impedance, which is stuff that I don't understand at all. Cortical Larva says passive can starve voltage. Yeah. And I don't understand how that works, but let's see if I can introduce some slew here. remove some of the low frequencies of our high-pitched sound that I can do on my mixer. But well, I want to remove more, so let's send it through a high-pass filter as well. Could just as well send it through a bandpass filter from the start, but well, we're here now anyway. Maybe let's try if I can add a little bit of stereo to this by using the odd partials from Odessa and the even partials as a left-right stereo pair. Let's try finding like just a droning chord. Maybe something like this can work as well. Let's add some modulation to one of these three parameters here. The warp is always a good one to modulate. And let's send that into the reverb as well. I'm using an Alesis quad reverb, by the way, as a rack reverb. Cortical Larva says that's sounding killer with lots of movement. Yeah, it's sounding really nice. I think so too. Let's add a little bit more modulation to Odessa here. I can use an output of the dual LFO here. Set to free. Maybe I should modulate the left side with a sample and hold from the right side here. Dual LFO lets me do that really easily. And then I can like maybe modulate the tilt here. Or maybe I should modulate the partials. No, the tilt maybe is better. I want to offset this more. And apparently the offset, there isn't an offset on the knob. Let's just do it like that. Let's increase the volume of the patch a little bit so we can hear it a little bit better. And let's send this Odessa sound through Morph 4 as well, just so I can bring in some sidechain compression. Well, it's not really sidechain compression, it's just VCA action, but it sounds exactly the same. Probably it's just semantics, the difference between the two. And then I should send this voltage into the other sound as well, but well, my stackables are I don't have any stackables anymore, so this is what it will have to be. Cortical Larva says Bank is good as well, I'm guessing to modulate on Odessa. Well, let's try it. No, I want to modulate it because it's a good idea, but I want to use a stepped voltage from my second Nibbler here, so it will be a little bit in sync with our sequence. And maybe let's take the second stepped output here and let's send that to the harmonic factor. Yeah, I think that's cool. Let's add just a little bit of hi-hat. I can extract. Let's just use the saw wave output here. And I should use a counter of some sorts. Maybe step 8 to like try and add a snare as well. Maybe I can just use an output from Nibbler here to trigger a snare. Let's just try it. Let's see. I need one more medium cable. Yes. Hating how that sounds, but I want to do it differently anyway. So let's take another output of our clock VCO, send it to Zularic Repetitor here. Let's switch this to probability gate mode. And let's use one of the outputs to trigger the snare. Let's see how that sounds. course, this one is now... It's better in phase like this. What do you think? Was it better without the snare drum? Better with? Cortical Larva says, I hope you're recording. Well, YouTube is recording. So everything we're doing here is getting recorded onto YouTube. Cortical Larva says better with the snare drum. Okay. It's a little bit out of phase because I've run out of stackable cables here. Aha, but I have one here. Yes. Let's briefly take that to this. That cable instead, and then I can use this. Now I forgot what I was doing. The output of this one was going here. Yes. Now it's all in phase. They might need space. Better with short linear drums. They might need space. Yes. Well, I can do something like so. Now the hi-hat is a little bit less, the pattern is a little bit less dense. This is as good as it's going to get because I'm all out of stackable cables and I need a lot of them to make the drums work. So for anyone joining really late, I think in a few minutes I'll end the stream. But well, we made this. Nistada. Oh hi, he says, it seems I missed 1 hour. Yes, 1 hour and a half. And I'm almost done here. In fact, well, I'm not finishing the stream completely yet. I don't think I will add to the patch. What we did the last hour and a half was patch up a Nibbler as a Benjolin or maybe even a Turing machine at some point. This is also a case of semantics. And well, I explained how to do it and why it works. And then we kept adding to the patch as I usually do. I can't stop until I almost run out of cables completely. And we ended up with this sonic, well, in my opinion, beautiful patch. Nistada says, I'm sorry, but was soldering a module. Well, you don't have to apologize. It's nice that you are here now. Sounds awesome, Nistada says. Thank you. Let's see if I can loop this. Because, well, yes, that functionality is built into the patch here. just enjoying the sounds here, guys and girls. Stada says the topic comes handy as I'm getting more and more into Benjolins. Yes, well, if you want to know how to build one or patch one up with just a shift register, you should rewatch the video. It's actually really easy. Stada says, so it's kind of Turing machine with audio creation. Yeah, well, if you ignore the wrangle part of a Benjolin and you clock it at audio rates, you kind of have a Turing machine, in my opinion. Well, people who are better at reading schematics should be able to debunk this statement or not. But in my opinion, a Turing machine is just like a Benjolin. Well, it's just using a shift register to create melodies, and Benjolin also uses a shift register to create chaos. But once you bring down the tempo of the chaos, like we did last stream, Stada, if you slow down your clocking oscillator, you get like generative stepped random voltages, which you can introduce to your audio rate VCO. And if you look at it, that's exactly what we can do with the Turing machine. There's even built-in loop functionality on the Benjolin. So these two instruments or tools are really very much related, and you can build both with the same patch. All you need is two VCOs, a shift register with preferably some kind of XOR input, and if you want to be able to turn on and off the loop function, you need a switch, and that's about it. Let's see how this sounds in a minor scale. This might be really jarring because changing scales can be really weird with patch. Let's just try it. Of course, our lead our high VCO is tuned manually, so it's not following. So I guess we can really hear how this would sound when everything is harmonious. Let's go back to a pentatonic scale then. Anyone, if there's any questions or suggestions for next stream, maybe now is the time. I will soon finish the stream. Mistada says a patch using only Schlappy modules. Maybe that's a good idea for when I have received the boundary layer demo unit. But that's a good idea. Cortical Larva says, I had a question about Morph4 and sidechaining. Yes, please ask. Hoofdjaw says, wonderful sounds. Thanks, Brice. Thank you for sticking around, Hoofdjaw. You've been silent, which is completely okay. I'm happy that you are still watching and listening, and that you are enjoying the sounds. Mistada says, kind of getting the most out of Schlappy modules. For English talking people out there, should I say Schlappy or Schlappy? I've always said Schlappy, but just recently I thought maybe I should say Schlappy. Cortical Larva says, how does it work, the sidechain with Morph4? Well, I'm cheating a little bit because, well, you can't really see, but the kick drum, I'm using Mandrake here as an envelope output. And this envelope is already it's like an offset of 5 volts, maybe it's 10 volts. And when the decay happens of the kick drum, the envelope output actually it's already the correct shape. So if you just send that as a CV signal to your VCA, you don't need to screw around with offsets, etc. You don't need to invert the envelope of your kick drum and subtract it from a static offset to create like a ducking envelope. It already does that for me, so I'm just using Morph4 as 4 separate VCAs. Well, only 3 of them are used now, and I've just melted that envelope output, that ducking output, to the CV inputs. So I'm kind of cheating. Larva says it's working either way and sounds tremendous. Thank you very much, Cortical Larva. So I think this is going to be it for this live stream. I enjoyed this stream very much, even more than the last stream. I've noticed this is a good moment to stream as well, which isn't surprising. It's a Friday night, and I'm guessing it's a Friday afternoon in a lot of places in the US. Nistada says, thank you, Brice. Thanks, Nistada, for being here. Better late than never. Thank you all for watching, for chatting. That's the most fun part. Well, the patching, making a patch is fun, but talking to you like really live is really cool. It's something that I really enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it too, judging from the comments in the chat you did, which I'm glad about. If you are watching this after the fact, thanks for watching the whole thing as well. Please leave a nice comment. That's always fun to read as well. Cortical Larva says, wranglers are great, wonderful utilization. Yes. I hope you learned something. Maybe that would be great. See you next time. See you next stream. Have a nice evening. Have a nice day. Bye everyone.